it is officially summertime. Okay, it's been summer for a little bit. That means cottage time. Kai, what are you doing?
Oh!
Kai named the jet ski. What's the name?
Blue.
But one of my favorite things right now, you guys have seen the Wake electric surfboard. So fun. That is not my favorite. Well, I mean, it's pretty fun. But one of the most satisfying things right now is this, the EcoFlow Delta Max. That is like a huge power bank, like a huge battery that you could take on set with you and power a light or charge some batteries, or you can plug it to a solar panel here, charging the battery here, and then we are charging the electric surfboard battery. I'm literally powering my fun with the sun. You can see the solar panel input there and the output to the battery. There's our battery charge. You have all these USB plugs. One of my favorite things is that you can plug in a solar panel straight into the battery and you don't need any other weird connectors or anything like that. Just plug it straight in and you're charging the battery. There's just something so satisfying about just getting electricity from the sun, free electricity, pumping it into this thing. I love it. Thank you, EcoFlow. This isn't sponsored. It's one of my favorite products that I've gotten in a long time, just because it's so satisfying for the brain. All right, let's go ride. Ever since I started as a filmmaker, I've been in a battle of making digital cameras look more like film cameras. For example, how to make GoPro look cinematic, the first tutorial I ever made. And I do a lot of different stuff. Over the years, I've done all sorts of different techniques like adding grain to just the highlights, which I've been doing more recently in Final Cut, except now in Premiere I haven't been, but now I'm moving back to Final Cut, I think. Kind of this Narcos vibe. And really there's two things that bother me about the digital camera look on most cameras. Of course, if you went to like Alexa's, I'm sure we're fine. They're too sharp and clean, and the highlights. Film just has this beautiful organic look. It's really rich in details, but it doesn't feel overly sharp like digital often does. And the highlights just have this really nice roll off before they blow out, or they don't really ever blow off. Whereas digital is just like, we're good, bam, overexposed. And one of the biggest things we can do is actually straight in camera using these. These aren't ND filters. These are filters that actually change the look of your footage. And I'm actually using my secret sauce right now. That's why those highlights look a little bit better than they should. I actually wish that a company right now would make lenses that have way more character and kind of like flaws, a little bit more organic. I feel like all the lenses out there right now kind of just look the same. They're all super clean and clinical, which can be great. But it would also be nice to have, you know, a little bit of a unique look. For example, this vintage lens, the Helios 422, has a very unique look, especially with that spiral bokeh. I was actually joking to somebody, I forget who it was, probably some lens manufacturer, that they should make like an NFT, real life NFT drop of lenses that are all a little bit unique and different, and they could literally be 1 to 100, like these unique looks. None of them are the same, and so it could just, I don't know, spice up things a little bit, whereas we're just stuck with these like lenses that really all look the same nowadays. So these look filters come in a ton of varieties, and I actually don't use the most popular one, which is the Black Pro Mist, and I'll explain why. Most of these types of filters affect things like the sharpness, the detail, the contrast of the image, and also the highlights, more specifically kind of like a bloom on the highlights. The most popular is the Black Pro Mist line from Tiffin, and I can totally understand why. It immediately really changes the look of your image. It really softens that 4K digital harsh look and immediately makes it look more filmic, and then also really blooms these highlights so they feel a little bit softer. That roll off isn't quite so harsh like we usually get in digital sensors. And along with that, there's a bit of like a glow or a bloom for the highlights. And they come in different strengths, so you can have more or less of the effect. And they do a really good job of making the digital sensor look a little bit more filmic. The problem with the Black Pro Mist line is that it's quite heavy-handed. It's definitely a look, and it almost decontrasts kind of the whole image, almost like a glowy 80s vibe look, which can be really great if that's what you want, but for normal occasions, it might be a little bit too much, which is what I've found. I use something different. It's called the black satin filter, and that's what I'm using right now. That's what I use for all of my videos, actually, and you probably haven't even really noticed. The reason that I like the black satin filters is that they're a little bit more subtle. They kind of smooth things out, make it a little bit more organic, but keep a lot of the contrast and details, and then the glow or blooming on the highlights is a little bit less, so it's just not so obvious that you have a look going on. I think the black satin filters are a lot more usable because they aren't so heavy-handed, so you can pretty much use them at any time like I do, and people aren't going to be thrown off by this look that you're projecting the whole time. No adding a whole glow over the image and no crazy blooming highlights. It does a really nice job of keeping the contrast and details but still softening things up a little bit. And it is similar to the Black Pro Mist at the 1/8 strength, but I still find this to be a little bit more pleasing and just subtle for me. And pro tip here is because they're pretty expensive, they can be $150, even $200 sometimes. You don't want to buy a bunch of these for your different size lenses, so you just buy the biggest one, 82 mil, and then you use these step-up rings to put them on smaller lenses. And the same thing applies to ND filters. Always just buy a big one and then use step-up filters, which cost like 20 bucks on Amazon, to put them on smaller lenses. Right now I think I have 2 rings, a black satin, and an ND filter on, and it looks great. A couple downsides of using something like this filter is that if you stack the filter and an ND filter, you can sometimes get vignetting on a really wide lens like the 16-35. Now on my Sony, I use the active stabilization, which crops in a little bit, so the vignetting is pretty minor. Sometimes you see it with the stabilization depending on how it's going, but I think it's fine for me. Another thing is if you have a really harsh light coming into the lens, you get these kind of like weird, not so nice green flares. So that can be a little bit annoying at times. But other than that, they're pretty dang great, and they also help to protect your lenses so they don't get scratched up. So that is kind of my little secret. I haven't talked about it too much because, I don't know, everybody else is gonna start using it, but I don't know. These are my secrets to making the image look just a little bit more cinematic or film-like. But can someone seriously make like really cool lenses that have more character? Still the benefits of modern day lenses like autofocus and all that, but just more character, you know, a little bit more grunge, like the new Batman movie. The lenses were incredible in that. We want more of that, not just the same basic, super clean lenses, which are great too, but give us something interesting. All right, see you guys.